So we're going to do a little bit of reacting to good old Deeds, even though I said I'm not going to deal with his likes anymore because they're driving me crazy. But I saw this here. It came up on my Edge. I used this for my reaction video, so it came up in the recommendation. I was like, only 15% of the PC market share. Windows 11 is as popular as heart disease. It's still more popular than Linux though. And we have to remember, Windows 11 came out a year and a couple of months ago. October last year, from when this is recorded. So 15% in a year and a couple of months is more growth than Linux managed to do in 30 fucking years on the desktop. But anyway, let's look into this 5-minute video that I can probably fucking rate over like a decade over.
So today I wanted to make one of these quick phone vlogs because I wanted to share with you guys some very interesting information.
And yeah, it's a phone blog. He only has audio on the left side. Professional YouTuber. Anyway.
I was reading a little bit this morning on the latest StatCounter numbers. StatCounter tracks what people are using as far as operating systems and web browsers and things like that. You know, what are people actually running on their computers and mobile devices?
What is it he's saying, like, when he's reading up those numbers about Linux, that they're grossly underestimated? So this is my problem with DHC, is that anything about Linux is falsely reported. Everything about Windows that's negative and Mac OS is rightly reported. You can't have it both ways, man.
And stuff like that. And in the October StatCounter numbers, apparently Windows 11 has 15.4% of the global desktop personal computer market share. That's right. In the entire world, only about 15% of people are actually running Windows 11 on their personal computers. That's mind-blowing because Windows 11 has now been out for a full year. And Windows users are not upgrading. They are not moving to...
They never had. So here's the, like, as a really, really intelligent person that he is, that has a lot of insight into the Windows world, the Mac world, the Linux world, the operating system world, and computing technologies, he must understand that adopting new versions of Windows have never been fast. Let's look at Windows 10 the first year. Let's see if we can find that. I don't know how accurate this is. I'm just Googling. I took the first one, so take this with a grain of salt. So this is the first year of Windows 10, 21.13%. So Windows 11 is, compared to the first year with Windows 10, it's not as big as a success. We can agree on that. But again, we see a trend. What about Windows 11 or Windows 7? So Windows 8 and 8.1 finally suppressed 15% market share in 2014. When did Windows 8 came out? 2012. So it took Windows 8 2 years to actually get up to the numbers where Windows 11 is at. What about Windows 7? So a year after Windows 7 came out, it only had 10.23%. This is a trend with Microsoft. Why do people not automatically upgrade? As DistroTube know this, he has to know this, he's an intelligent guy. Why do a new version of Microsoft always take a long time to get implemented into the computing world? Most people don't just automatically update their operating system. They only upgrade their operating system when needed or buy new hardware. Windows 10 or 11 is actually doing better than Windows 8 and 7 when they came out. But he must know this. He's a massively intelligent guy. And yes, these are maybe, I just took you guys with a quick Bing search. They may not be 1000% accurate, but you get the idea. The idea here, what I'm trying to say to you is that Windows always take a long time to be upgraded to the current version.
Windows 11, and in many cases, I think this is because Windows 11, the fact that they require, you know, the TPM enabled CPUs and secure boot, and some people just don't have.
So I talked to someone about this on my live stream the other day. Had Linus Torvalds come out and say, in the name of security, you cannot use the latest Linux kernel unless you have secure boot or something similar to secure boot and TPM enabled. Another fact is that TPM is open source, by the way. He must know it. He's a really intelligent guy. He definitely must know that TPM is an open source technology. Had Linux come out and said that, the Linux world would be like, yeah, let's high-five each other. Look how fucking seriously we are taking security. Look how bad Windows is. They're not doing the same as us. They are not as secure as us. We are doing the right thing, that making sure that Linux is as secure as possible. That's what Linux people would have been doing. He would have been doing this if Linux came out and did that. But because Windows are doing it. Bad Windows. Why do it take... why are you so serious about security? Why are you doing things to make Windows more secure? We've always said that you were unsecure by default. Why are you trying to fix that? Why are you trying to protect the system against its users and help protecting the user? Why are you taking security so seriously, Windows?
The hardware needed to run Windows 11, so they're staying on older versions of Windows, especially...
No, like I said, he must know this. People don't just upgrade because they can't upgrade. If they're happy with Windows 10, why is there a lot of people using Windows 7 and 8?
Windows 10, which Windows 10 is still by far the most popular desktop operating system on the planet, according to...
So was the previous... So was Windows 7 or Windows 8 when Windows... I don't know about Windows 8. It was a little bit of a misnomer. But so was Windows 7 and 8 when Windows 10 came out. So was Windows 7 when Windows 8 came out. So was Vista when Windows 7 came out. I think actually XP was more used than Vista. So Windows... they run on this TikTok kind of thing, is that you get a popular version of Windows and you get a shitty version of Windows. You get a popular version of Windows and you get a shitty version of Windows. So the previous version of Windows, or one of the previous versions of Windows, have always been more popular than the current one for a long, long time. And we're talking years. Sometimes it takes 2-3 years for the current version to catch up, or end of life of the previous versions that the people are using.
Stat counter, a full 71.29% of personal computers around the world are running Windows 10, right? And Windows 10 is still supported. Microsoft plans on supporting Windows 10, I think, for another 3 years, I think until 2025.
Nothing new. Like I said, this is like, I would be 1000% slapping him on his little head and say, good boy, if this was something we have never seen before in the Windows world. This is part of the course. This is normal. Look, like I said, we just looked at the statistic for every new Windows release. This is normal.
I could be a little off on that, but I know you still have some time of support for Windows 10 because Microsoft recognizes that a lot of people are just never going to move to Windows 11. They're staying.
No, Microsoft has always done this because they know organizations, companies are using older versions of Windows, so they give them a long time to migrate over to the new systems, just like Ubuntu have the LTS releases. Why do you think we have LTS releases? For those cases where people can't and won't, or it's a big task for them to just upgrade to a new version when it comes out.
On Windows 10, Microsoft, of course, needs to support Windows 10 a little longer. What's really shocking is Windows 7 still is hanging in there. Almost 10% of people that have personal computers are...
It's not shocking. Windows 7 was a really, really great, popular Windows version. Windows XP is also really high up there. You have to remember, though, most of those 10% are not home users.
Still running Windows 7, 9.6% market share for Windows 7. There's also a 2.5% market share for Windows 8.1.
All of those are still more than Linux if you take out Chrome OS. He's sitting here smirking. With Chrome OS, the latest stats, and I'm using the latest stats that actually are a little bit better than the October stats. With Chrome OS, we have 5-point-something% of the market share with Linux. Without Chrome OS, and I don't regard Chrome OS as Linux, the developers don't do that, so that's kind of the boat that I'm following with. I'm listening to the developers. We have 1.8% of the market share. So he can sit there and be a really intelligent, smart person and say that, oh, Linux or Windows is failing and blah, 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 and still be thinking 1.8%.
Like, what the hell? I don't get these market share numbers. Windows XP even has like a 0.4%.
If you don't get it, understand it, like I just explained, that companies, organizations, they stick with what's known to work, because if they upgrade, they lose compatibility with the software they use, or they have to shut down the production or what makes the money for a day and they can't afford that, or they say no need to do it, and so on. If you don't understand the numbers or have a little bit of insight in the numbers, being an intelligent guy like he is, he should be saying to himself, you know what, I don't fully understand this, so maybe I should not talk about it.
That number in there, so there's still a lot of people out there, you know, globally. I mean, is 0.4%, but that still represents a large number of people still running Windows XP, which...
So that's under 180 million people, because right now, Linux with Chrome OS have 180 something million users.
Reached end of life, what, 15 years ago? That is wild. Now, of course, for us, the Linux space, we're concerned about our Linux numbers. So if you talk global desktop OS market share, regardless of versions, Windows has 76% of the desktop market share. Mac OS 10,
2.6. Didn't he just say, so if I'm not mistaken, didn't he say that Windows 7 or Windows 10 had 70? Let's try and do this. 71% for Windows 10. Let's take Windows XP out of it. Windows 8 was like 2%, 3%, and Windows 10 or 11 is 15. Something here don't match. I know I got the numbers wrong, but you get the idea here. So just at Windows... Or was those numbers that he was talking about out of the Windows market? So he was not comparing Windows with Linux and Mac OS. So if Windows 10 is 71% out of the Windows markets, yeah, that could make sense. That's why he should have shown us the graph, because it matters of what statistics you're looking at.
Has about 16% of the desktop market share, which is kind of shocking to me. I find that number rather high. You would...
As a really intelligent person that he is that, ooh, I don't like that. That must be ridiculously high.
Wouldn't think that many people are actually running Mac because of the cost, especially having to buy Mac hardware.
Apparently they do. Apparently they do.
But 16% of the desktop market share for Mac OS 10. Linux, though, our market share is steadily going up. We are now at 2.
No, it's not. No, it's not. This is the average. Linux have had an average market share of between 1.6 to 2.8. Ever since 2000 up till now, that's where it has fluctuated against. Some years it goes up a little bit, other years or month. I think this is only for October. So if you looked at when the first lockdowns came out in 2020, for like a couple of months, Linux was like over 3% of the market share, and then it dwindled down. This is kind of the average for Linux.
2.6%, nearly 3% of the desktop OS.
Well, if you take Chrome OS in, I'm a nice guy, I give you guys Chrome OS as Linux, we actually at 5.something%.
Market share. Now, things get a little strange when you factor in mobile devices. So if you do total operating...
No, because mobile... So Android is not Linux, Chrome OS is not Linux.
System market share, regardless of desktop, mobile, whatever. Actually, Windows is not the most popular operating system. Android is the most popular operating system on the planet with 42.37%.
Yeah, but Android is not Linux. And Android is has heavily proprietary code in it also. Like Android is closer to Windows than it is to iOS or Mac OS or Linux. Like Android is doing everything that the open source community don't want a company to do. Android is done by one of the biggest, most predatory companies in the world. The company that probably takes more data every time you sneeze than any other company. Google should be any Linux fanboy's worst fucking enemy. But because they are using a heavily modified version of the Linux kernel, it's okay. They are the good guys. But as a really intelligent, smart person, he sees this.
Of the total operating system market share, Windows is second with 30%. iOS is third with 17.6%, Mac OS 10 is fourth place, 6.24%, and then Linux is all the way down at...
Is he going to bundle Android in with Linux? Give me a poll.
Just 1.04%. Makes sense, especially when you factor in mobile. There's not a lot of mobile operating systems that are a proper like GNU/Linux system. Although you could say Android.
Bingo! Yes. We need to have a we need to have a DT bingo where we watch some DT videos, and then before we do it, we're like, okay, is he saying this? Is he doing this? Like, as a really, really smart and intelligent person, he's doing all of the right things. He's a really great guy. He really understands what this is about. He really understands the operating systems and how they are built and maintained and done. He really understands that as a really, really great FOSS fanboy that he is, that he really should love everything Google does, and he definitely understands that Android is definitely Linux. He's a fucking brilliant guy, this dude.
Is Linux, but it's not GNU/Linux, right? Android's a different kind of operating system. It does.
Yeah, it's not Linux. It's just it's. So here's, to not be sarcastic here a little bit. The way you should look at Linux is that it's a fork, or not Linux, Android is that it's a fork of Linux. So are they Linux based? Yeah, but they are fork. You know, they are taking the Linux kernel and going their own way. Most of what Android is about, like if you look at the whole total of the operating system, has mostly nothing to do with Linux. Like if I was 100% buying everything from the FOSS community, I should hate Google. I should hate everything Google stands for. And I'm sure that as an intelligent and smart, brilliant guy that he is, he's definitely doing that.
Based off of the Linux kernel, though. Ultimately, I just wanted to make this quick video because I was just so shocked that Windows 11 is not popular.
As a smart and intelligent guy that have done his research, like you and I just did on live on this video, he would understand that this is actually a normal trend for Windows, and actually Windows 11 is doing better than a lot of its predecessors.
Right? This is such a big opportunity for us in the Linux space, especially because a lot of these people that are Windows users have already stated, I mean, they're stating with these stats, right, that they're never going to move to Windows 11.
What the fuck is he smoking? Come on, dude. No, they are not. No, they are not. This is par the course. This is normal within the Windows circles. This is how Windows and their new releases have, like I said, it's actually done better than a lot of other Windows releases for the first year. There's no opportunity to be made for the Linux community. You want to know when we had the most or biggest chance of actually kicking Windows in the balls? Windows Vista. That was our opportunity. Windows Vista. How many years ago was that? What happened with the Linux desktop? As a smart and intelligent guy, he's letting us down a little bit here.
Eventually, they're going to have to move from Windows 10, or some of them, even from Windows 7 to something else. And I think this is where we can gain some market share in the Linux space, because right now,
every Linux fanboy say this every time a new version of Windows comes out. Every fucking time. New version of Windows, it requires more RAM, it requires more CPU, it requires better hardware. And now is our chance for people that have to upgrade for maybe not the previous version of Windows, but the one before that, to capitalize on the market share.
Windows 11, I mean, this is a sad market share number, 15.
It's doing better than most or a lot of the other previous releases within the first year. It's actually good numbers. I think he's trolling me. Like, he's so brilliant and knowledgeable about what he's talking about that he's actually trolling me to make me get a reaction. I'm sure of this.
15%. Think about that number, 15%. If we're talking diseases, about 15% of the total world population has cardiovascular disease of some kind. We're talking about diabetes, about 15% of the population.
So diabetes is not a cardiovascular disease, it's an organ failure disease. It's something I can't remember the English word for it, but it stopped working. Cardiovascular is your heart and your veins. But as a pretty and amazing guy, he must understand that. Why do I know this? Well, I have family members that actually have cardiovascular disease. Some of them have been side effects because they didn't take care of the diabetes. You can't get cardiovascular disease if you're not taking care of your diabetes. I have a cardiovascular disease. I have high blood pressure because I'm a fat motherfucker. I have too much fat in my blood. cardiovascular disease.
Population, probably has diabetes or pre-diabetic in some way. And, that's about where Windows 11 is, right? Windows 11 is about as popular as cardiovascular disease. Of course, I need to be careful with that, because if we're going to equate operating system popularity and disease stats, Linux being at 2.6%, that's pretty bad, because honestly, about 5% of the people in the entire world have a mental disorder or a substance abuse disorder. So think about that. 5% of the world's population has some kind of mental disorder. Only 2.6% of the population is using Linux. Of course, there's some overlap with those two categories.
So is he saying that I have to be, because I have I'm mentally disabled, I have autism, that's regarded as a disability in my country. So is he saying that people with mental health are using Linux, that have mental health problems? Or is he saying that there are more people with mental health problems than there are Linux users? Of course there is, but is he being judgmental? I don't get what he's saying here. Are you trying to diss mental disability, mental illness? Are you trying to make a diss towards mental illnesses? Is that what you're doing?
Peace, guys.
No, there's no peace with you. So, making a video about how bad Windows is when it's actually doing better than projected. This amazing, smart, intelligent person here that looks like he's about to rip my head off, by the way. But this smart guy have done his research about market share within Windows. What the norm trajectory for Windows installs is the first year and 2 years. Like you and I just did. Really, really simple. Not the most accurate number, but really, really simply done over a video. Put his brain cells to work and came up with the amazing conclusion that within the first year, Windows 11 is failing by having average numbers compared to previous, actually better numbers than most, or not most, but than other Windows releases within the first year. So his amazingly high IQ, brilliant research skills, brilliant insight into the computing world have then concluded that Windows 11 is failing, and Android is also Linux, so therefore, as the overall operating system, well, really we are over 50 or close to 50% of the computing market. And that now we should capitalize on that with Linux. His insight into the computing world, his brilliant researching skills, his amazingly insight into computing and knowledge about IT. I don't understand why he's not a fucking billionaire doing IT solutions, IT infrastructures, educating people about IT. I can't comprehend his brilliance. I really can't. He is making me fucking shake my pants, poop myself with his brilliant videos. Windows 11 is failing because it's doing higher than projected within the first year if you look at previous first year installs of Windows. I think only Windows 10 was succeeding it with 20% in the first year. But in his brilliant mindset, that's failing. I hope you will have an amazing day. I will not give you the peace, love, and rock and roll thing. Just say, go fucking take over the world, be amazing, do something great, and you can do way more than you think you can. See you all later. Bye-bye.